and welcome. My name is Madalina and I am a member of Enbio team. In today's class, we are going to talk about the decontamination process. We are going to see which are the good practices that we need to follow in order to achieve a full and correct decontamination process. We are going to see as well how we can sterilize the tools using an autoclave and how we can test the efficiency of the autoclave. So, what does decontamination mean? Decontamination is a process which consists of various stages that aims at removing all the microorganisms like viruses, bacteria, spores that can harm our health. Today we are going to focus on the sterilization of tools, and the basic decontamination process includes three main stages: the cleaning, the disinfection, and the sterilization of the tools. And just in case you are using tools that can harm your skin while you are trying to clean them, you can add an initial disinfection step at the beginning of the decontamination process. You can simply submit the tools to a disinfection bath before you start to clean them. So let's see how we can clean the instruments. We can use a brush to first remove the superficial dirt that we may have on our tools. And after we do that, we can just simply wash the tools under running water and dry them. The second stage is the disinfection, which is a very important one. Through the disinfection, we will get to eliminate all the microorganisms or the majority of them. But it is important to mention here that only through disinfection we will not get our tools to be sterile, because the disinfectant products that exist out there are not capable of removing as well the spores. The spores can be removed only through sterilization. In order to disinfect the tools, we need to use a disinfectant product. It is very important here to read all the instructions on the label of this product that we are using and to follow them correctly. And for an easier process, we can use a disinfectant container or an ultrasonic cleaner together with the disinfectant solution. The third stage, and the most important one, is the sterilization. As I mentioned before, the disinfection can only remove the microorganisms, or the majority of them, but not the spores. And only through sterilization we can kill also the spores that we can have on our tools and make the tools safe for our health. There are different types of sterilizers on the market. We can find sterilizers which work with steam, like the Enbio autoclave. We can find sterilizers which work with dry heat. We can find chemical sterilizers or gaseous sterilizers. Currently, the autoclave, which works with steam, is the fastest, the most reliable, the most economic and ecological sterilization method. Let's see how we can prepare the tools for sterilization. First of all, it is important to remember to always use protective gloves for the whole decontamination process. And to prepare the tools for sterilization, we recommend always to use sterilization pouches. But, for instance, if you are using the Enbio autoclave, you can sterilize as well the tools without any sterilization pouch. Here are some examples of sterilization pouches. When we select the sterilization pouches, it is important to take into consideration the technology of the sterilization device that we are using, and also the type of instruments that we are using, their size, and the number of tools that we want to introduce in one pouch. For instance, these sterilization pouches have an indicator here that show the fact that they are supposed to be used for sterilizers that uses steam as the technology. Let's see how we should pack the tools that we want to sterilize. For instance, my tool here has been properly cleaned and disinfected and dried, so now it is ready to be packed in the sterilization pouch. I have selected a sterilization pouch that is proper for the dimensions of the tools that I want to sterilize. It is important, if we have this type of tools, to open them before we introduce them into the sterilization pouch, because this way the steam will penetrate better and will sterilize the tool more efficiently. This discontinued line here shows us where we should introduce the tool. So I am introducing the tool that I want to sterilize inside the sterilization pouch. I have selected a sterilization pouch that corresponds to the dimensions of my tool. So it is important to remember here to allocate at least 3 centimeters between the discontinued line and the position of the tool inside the pouch, because during the sterilization process, the pouch can swell. After we put the tool inside, it is also important to use a chemical indicator that proves the efficiency of the sterilization process. So for instance, if we are using multiple sterilization pouches, it is enough to put the indicator only inside one of them. And we recommend always to use chemical indicators of class 5 or 6, because these ones are the best, and I will talk about them a little bit later. So I'm going to introduce the chemical indicator that proves the efficiency of the sterilization process, and then I'm ready to seal the sterilization pouch. I'm going to remove this part here. And when we try to seal the sterilization pouch, it is important to have the pouch on a perfectly plain and hard surface so that we seal it perfectly. We have to make sure that on this portion here, the air is not penetrating. So now the tool is ready to be introduced in the autoclave. Once again, I remind the fact that the sterilization pouch already has a chemical indicator. So here we can see that this sterilization pouch is to be used in an autoclave, so in a sterilizer with the steam technology. But this indicator is only class 1 and is not sensitive to all the factors involved in the sterilization pouches, and that is why we prefer to use another chemical indicator to prove the efficiency of the sterilization from all points of view. So we have sealed the sterilization pouch here, but after we take the tool out of the autoclave, when we are trying to open the package, we have to do it on the other side. So we will open the sterilization pouch from this part here. It is important to know that there are 3 classes of sterilization: Class N, which is the lower one, Class S, which is the middle one, and Class B, which is the best class because it can sterilize all kinds of tools. Let's see how we should put the tools inside the autoclave. First, we open the door. And then if we are using this type of sterilization pouch, it is important to put the foil side down at the beginning. And if we are using another row of tools, it is important to put paper on paper and foil on foil. So practically here I will put the second row like this. Now I'm closing the door. And now we should choose the proper sterilization program. And let's see first what is the difference between the 3 sterilization programs of the Enbio autoclave. As we can see here, first we have the fast program. It sterilizes the tools at a temperature at 134 Celsius degrees, and it is a Class S sterilization cycle. So it is important to know that this program does not include the drying stage, so we should always use this program when we want to sterilize solid tools, and it is important to remember to sterilize the tools without the pouches, because otherwise the pouches will be humid. The second program sterilizes the tools at 121 Celsius degrees and during 30 minutes, and it is a program, it is a Class B sterilization program that we can use with the tools that are more sensitive to very high temperatures. So for instance, if we are using tools that have a silicone part, it is recommended to use this program here. And the last program, it is still a Class B, and it sterilizes the tools at 134 Celsius degrees during 15 minutes. And this can sterilize all kinds of tools, wrapped and unwrapped, porous and non-porous. So this is the one recommended if you don't use sensitive tools, for instance. It is important to know that if you prefer to sterilize the tools without the sterilization pouches, you should use the tools immediately after you take them out from the autoclave. Let's see how we can test the efficiency of the autoclave. There are different tests that we can use, for instance, chemical indicators. The chemical indicators are classified in 6 different classes, and we recommend the usage of the classes 5 and 6 because these ones are the best. They practically take into consideration all the factors that are involved in the sterilization process compared to the most inferior classes, which take into consideration only a few of these factors. So here we have the Class 6 chemical indicators, and we can see on them additional information on how to use them inside the autoclave. So for instance, this is a test that has not been used yet, and we can see that if the sterilization is successful, the color needs to change from pink to black. So here the color is still pink, but here we can see that this indicator confirms a successfully sterilization process because it changed the color from pink to black. We can see here the technology of the sterilizers that we are using. So these tests are to be done with a steam sterilizer, and we can see the time that the sterilization test needs to be inside the autoclave so that it confirms the efficiency of the sterilization process. And we have to remember that one of these test indicators has to go inside the sterilization pouch with the other instruments that we have inside the pouch. And if, for instance, if we are using different sterilization pouches at one time, it is enough to put this indicator only in one pouch and not in all of them. Another category of tests that we can perform with the autoclave is the biological one. So practically here I have 2 examples of a biological test, the Sporal A test and the EZ test. And these 2 tests have the purpose of determining if the sterilization removed all the spores that might be present on the surface of the tools. And let's see how we can use them. So in this Sporal A test, we have inside this pouch a sporal sample. And it is recommended, if we want to test the killing of the spores in the autoclave, it is recommended to put this test inside another pouch. So to put it in a pouch without any other tools and to insert it like that in the autoclave. And this test, after we take it out from the autoclave, it is important to take it to a laboratory where we can analyze if the sterilization process that we did remove the spores from the tools. And this other biological test, the EZ test, has the same purpose to see if all the spores were removed. And in order to check the efficiency of the sterilization process in this case, we need a special device, an incubator. And if we have it in our salon, it means that we don't have to go to the laboratory. We can check the results in the salon with that incubator. And one more important thing is to use the Sporal test with the program that we use most often when we sterilize our tools with an autoclave. And when we introduce this test inside the autoclave, it is better if we also have other tools inside in sterilization pouches so that the test is performed in the natural environment of the sterilization. Another test that we can perform is the Bowie and Dick test, which analyzes the penetration of the steam during the sterilization process. And this is an example of a Bowie and Dick test. So we can see that it has this format of a closed notebook, if you want. And we have to introduce this test in an autoclave. And for instance, here on the test, we can see that we have to choose a program that sterilizes at a temperature of 134 Celsius degrees. And the test should be inside the autoclave for at least 3.5 minutes. And when we use this test, when we perform this test, it's important to not have other tools inside the autoclave. So we should only have the Bowie and Dick test inside the autoclave. And we have a special program that we have to choose in order to do this test. So in the menu of the autoclave, you have a test section where we can select the Bowie and Dick test and perform it. And now we can see how we can see if the sterilization, if the penetration of the steam during the sterilization was correctly done. So for instance, to check the results of the Bowie and Dick test, first of all, we will see that the color on the surface of the test changed from pink to black. And then, very important, we have to open the test and to see inside of it, so in the middle of it, we have these lines. And if all the lines are having the black color without any white stains, it means that the steam penetrates perfectly within the autoclave and the sterilization is done properly. Let's move forward to the helix test. This is how the helix test looks like. As we can see, it has a quite long tube with a diameter of only 2 millimeters, and the steam has to penetrate inside the whole tube and to get to the end of it, where we have a chemical indicator inside, which will confirm if the test was passed or not. So here is the chemical indicator. And this test is supposed to check if we indeed can sterilize all kinds of tools inside the autoclave. And in order to perform it, we need to select the special test from the menu of the autoclave. Another test that we can perform is the vacuum test, which shows if the vacuum is functioning properly during the sterilization process. In order to perform this test, we need to select it from the test menu on the autoclave. So for instance, we click on test, and here we can see the vacuum test. And we just click on it, and then we click on start, and the test is going to be performed. One very important thing to remember is that we need to perform the vacuum test at the beginning of the working day, which is before we sterilize any other tools, because for this test, the autoclave has to be cold. So we recommend you to, if you use this kind of autoclave, like the Enbio autoclave, to perform the vacuum test every day before you start sterilizing any other tool. If you are using the Enbio autoclave, together with the autoclave you will receive an USB stick where all the sterilization processes will be automatically saved. And still on that USB stick, you will find a software called Enbio Data Viewer that you need to install on your computer in order to access the report. And I'm going to show you how the sterilization reports look like. So this is what you can see on your laptop after installing the Enbio Data Viewer. So on the sterilization report, the most important thing is that we see if the test was successful or not. So we can see if the sterilization was properly done or not. In this case, we can see that the answer is yes. The other information that we can see on the report is the date when we performed the test or the sterilization, the time when the sterilization started and when it ended, the number of process. Here we can see if we selected a test or a sterilization program. And here we can see the stages like that the autoclave performed during the sterilization. And after each sterilization process, you have to put here the indicator, the chemical indicator that you used in order to prove that the sterilization process was done properly. So this has to be put here. And here we have some empty space when you can add some additional information regarding the sterilization process that you did. For instance, here you can see how many sterilization pouches you used and how many tools were in each sterilization pouch. And here we have an example of a test that was, actually it is a program, like a sterilization program, that was not successfully performed. And here you are going to see that the sterilization was not complete. So this is the difference between a good sterilization and a sterilization that was not done properly. So that's it. You now know more about the decontamination process, you know how to sterilize the tools using an autoclave, and how to test the efficiency of the autoclave. I hope you find this class useful. Thank you very much for your attention.